Okay, we are live. This is episode 10 of the Synth Summit Show, and we got a special guest for episode 10. We've got Glen Darcey of Arturia. Glen is Vice President of Product Management, and I've got a window open somewhere. There we go.
Feedback on yourself.
There we go. I got rid of it. So lots of fun stuff going on here. So we've got Glen Darcey of Arturia, Vice President of Product Management. He's had about 30 years in the music industry now. Is that about right?
Yeah.
So I'm trying to date you as much as possible here.
Yeah. I started when I was 2.
Okay. And co-hosting with us today, we've got Bryce of modular Upright on Instagram, upright with a 1 for the I.
Yeah, with a 1 for the I. Yeah.
So why don't you tell everybody what you've been up to?
Not much. Well, actually, I'm doing a review for Trimmer, so that's like the big news for me. F expansion sent over a copy, so I'm trying to do a written review for that, and then just playing with Rainmaker. Just got Rainmaker, so that thing's awesome. So I've been having a lot of fun with that, and basically that's it right now. Not doing too much. I just had surgery on my wrist, so I'm kind of
laid up.
Kind of just laid up here with the.
I was talking to him the other day after his surgery, and he was a little bit loopy. So
yeah. So
if there's something off the wall, we'll blame it on that.
Yeah, right. There you go.
And the other co-host that we've got here is St. Joe of soundsandgear.com. Joe, what have you been up to?
Same old stuff, man. Sounds and gear, machine tutorials, push tutorials. Finally going modular, so I've been kind of documenting that whole thing, man. It's been crazy.
Oh yeah, you've got the modular diary up now, right?
Corey's is a diary. Mine's is just.
Oh, yours is a log.
Just going modular.
Yeah, just the documentation.
I don't want to steal his thunder. So.
Okay. Well, yeah.
Corey's got the B-Boy Tech modular journal, and mine's is just going modular. But it's just like documenting, stuff I'm getting, what I'm learning, kind of, letting people grow with me. So.
Yeah, and it's been great because we've got B-Boy Tech Report. Corry will most likely be joining us in a little bit. He's stuck in traffic, so I gave him a free pass to get on here whenever he wants to. But yeah, basically soundsandgear.com and B-Boy Tech Report are both kind of getting into modular around the same time. So if you want to get some different perspectives on modular and getting started in it and what first impressions are kind of like, you might want to check out those 2 sites right now, and kind of you can join the journey along with those guys, which is pretty cool. So
exactly,
definitely check that out. So I'm gonna hop over to Glen here and basically put his feet to the fire on a lot of stuff and
oh yeah,
drill him. So Glen, before we dive into all the Arturia stuff, I figure we'll get just a little bit of history as far as what kind of projects you've been involved in the past. I know earlier this week we spoke about 360 systems, and that was like the first real industry job you had. Is that correct?
Yeah. Well, yeah. After I got out of school, that was where I went, as 360 systems.
Where did you go to school at?
I just I did 1 year at Berklee College of Music, just enough to find out that I was not going to ever be a professional saxophone player.
So you're a saxophonist, though?
Yeah, I was there at the same time as Branford Marsalis, and I came in with like okay ratings, and he came in like blowing the top out of all the ratings, and I was like, yeah, I'm never going to be there. So.
Well, I mean, come on, look at who he is.
Yeah, he's awesome.
I can't blame that at all.
But I was into synths at the time too, and so I did some stuff there. So I did my 1 year at Berklee. Nobody's ever supposed to graduate Berklee.
So then you went to 360 systems?
Yeah, I went to an electronic tech school, and I did a year program there, like a DeVry kind of thing, just to become an electronics technician. I wanted to work in synthesizers. I wanted to work with them, have my hands on with the thing, so I did that. And yeah, I started at 360 Systems as a repair tech. Well, we were a tiny company back then. We were like 4 of us when I started, so I was a repair tech. I was a sample guy. I did sampling and sample editing. I did customer service. We did whatever you had to do to build and ship them.
So when was it that you actually got into getting to decide what products are being dealt with and kind of getting more involved in the actual creation of products?
Well, I did a little bit at 360 Systems because we were such a small company. So when we were coming up with product ideas, it was mainly the owner of the company, Bob Easton, who'd come up with a product idea. And then he'd run it by those of us who actually used products, because he was an engineer and not a product user. And so then we'd give our input and say, yeah, it should do this and do that and the other. So I actually got a lot of that at 360. But then when I left 360 and went to Roland, I really didn't get much of that at all at Roland. For the first 4 years at Roland, I was the head repair tech in the repair department. So I got a lot more hands-on with understanding electronics and how synths are made and what they do.
Wow. Wow.
What makes a synth reliable and not reliable and that kind of thing.
That's awesome, man.
And then my last 3 years at Roland, I was in the Pro Audio division, and I was doing everything from tech support to customer interfacing. We were selling a direct disc recorder, which was about 15 grand back then. And it was the lead-up technology that led into the VS880.
Yes. Wow.
So our division was kind of like, here, we're going to try out new technology and figure it out and do it in the pro audio realm. But I really didn't have a lot in the way of product input at that time at Roland. Almost everything was done in Japan, and we'd say, here's what we want, and give them a list of 100 things, and they'd put 3 of them in. My real, I guess, besides 360 is at Akai was when I really was kind of given the keys to the company and said, here, do what you want. So yeah, Akai, and that was about 2005 when I started there.
So what did you handle at Akai? Was it the keyboards and controllers and all that stuff?
Yeah, it started with like the MPD pad controllers,
Okay.
the MPD 24, 32, 18, the MPK keyboards. I had to fight tooth and nail to get MPKs built at that time.
Wow.
They had some bad experiences with keyboards from another company, or the owner did, and so he didn't want to do keyboards. He was like, yeah, keyboards are evil. And I'm like, no, there's a market for these things. And we did good, and they sold through the roof. And so I started the MPK line.
Okay.
Wow.
I was an Ableton user since 2001. I did loop libraries for a number of years. And Ableton was the first, when I first saw it at NAMM in 2001, I was like, here's something I can actually use my loops and not have to like time stretch them and trim them, try to hope they'll sync. And so I got into it early, and I wanted to build a control surface for that, so I did the APC-40.
Are you still using?
Oh, let me turn off my phone. Turn off my phone ringer here.
Are you still using Ableton as your main recording DAW, or? No, not really. Well, I use it a lot. I use it in a different way, actually. I use it a lot for, like, constructing loops, building up patterns, doing that kind of stuff. Okay.
But I really don't like recording and mixing in it.
Okay.
So I'll do a lot of stuff where I'll print out stems and that, and then I'll bring the stems into, like, Logic. I've been up with Logic since version 1.5.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Slowly transitioning out of Logic right now into Studio One.
Wow, that's what Joe was just telling me about Studio One.
The newest version of Studio One's awesome.
Is it really? Wow. Okay.
Absolutely.
They've got a lot of the editing things that, like Pro Tools. I came from Pro Tools editing and post-production, and Pro Tools, I'm not really a big fan of it. I do like its mixing capabilities and its busing, and its editing is amazing, but Studio One's got a lot of that editing, that quick editing stuff that you could do in Pro Tools now, and I'm really starting to get into Studio One as of their new version.
Gotcha.
St. Joe, you're using it too?
Yeah, I've been a fan of Studio One since the very first version. because it came at right around the time where I was getting out of hardware and looking more into software, and I wasn't really a fan of a lot of the more traditional DAWs. I think they were, it was more streamlined than the rest of them. A lot of the rest of them were kind of cluttered to me, and that one just seemed real simple because I come from the era of hard disk recorders like the VS and the Boss, 8080s and all that stuff. So, I just wanted something really simple, and Studio One was it. So I've been a fan of them since day one. I mean, I use Ableton too, but for a traditional DAW, I prefer Studio One over the rest.
Yeah, so for me, it depends on what I'm doing. So if I'm doing, so I do ambient music, and a lot of times I like to record it in one track straight through.
Definitely.
Play in the synth, and I like to play and turn knobs and do it as a real-time performance when I do them. So a lot of times I'll just use like Studio One or Logic and record straight tracks, but there's times where I like to build up stuff, and I might build loop patterns or, longer ambiances and stuff that I'll build via loops in Ableton. And
Gotcha.
I still really love Ableton for that.
I tend to use it mostly for like if I want to mix, or if I want to do anything in a linear format, that's really where I jump to it. Other than that, I love being groove based, and I love being hardware based. I know that Glenn, we spoke before the show about drum machines, because I like to use drum samplers as kind of like the hub of my studio. So I've always been an MPC guy, and then I moved on to Machine. I primarily use Machine Studio, though I'm trying to force myself to be more on Push 2. But for some reason, like some products just gel with some people quicker than others, and that one is just I literally have to force myself into that one. But you had mentioned that you still have a MPC setup in your studio. And do you still use that primarily for music production when you actually have the time for it?
When I have the time for it, I love sequencing on the MPC because I like having it there and I like having it hands-on. Even triggering synths and stuff off the pads, playing synths, you approach it in a different way.
Right.
Now, you were involved in that project as well, the MPC 5000 project, right?
Yeah.
Okay, we're live on the air now. So, the stream previously crashed. That happens sometimes when you're doing live shows. It's what makes us better than everyone else. So, again, it's the Synth Summit Show. This is episode 10. We've got Glen Darcey, VP of Product Management of Arturia. We've got Upright Bryce of modularbeatsmith.com with us. We've got Corry of B-Boy Tech Report with us. And we've got St. Joe of soundsandgear.com with us. So we've got a full panel with us. And where we left off before, we were talking about the Akai MPC 5000. And I'm going to kind of shift gears because I don't necessarily know exactly where we left off at, but I'm going to shift gears and talk about another story, and that is the fabled MPC 3500. The MPC 3500, there's a lot of speculation about it. You see it pop up on eBay from time to time, and in forums you see people talk about, oh, well, that was a prototype. So Glenn actually knows the story, so I want to have you tell us what was the MPC 3500? Have you ever seen one? And what's the dilly, yo?
Yeah, I might see one right now. I might see one right now, actually. The 3500 was the original. It was the original name of the 5000. We originally wanted to call it that. It was the name, myself and the engineering team. Akai at that time was really three of us. In all of Newmark, three of us actually had an Akai business card. So it was myself and this guy Alex Supe, who's the director of engineering, and Dan Gill. And so we wanted to call it 3500 because it didn't have the amount of RAM and it didn't have the 96K sampling rates that the 4000 had.
Right.
Makes sense.
And we really wanted to build more off the legacy of the 3000, 2500, 3000, 2000, 2500 legacy. So it really made more sense from what we were trying to do user interface-wise, sequencer-wise, all that kind of stuff as, yeah, it's the next step from the 2500 or the 3000. Right. And so we call it 3500. And so what happened was we had one sales guy went to the owner of the company and said, hey, people are going to think that that's worse than the 4000. And so we should call it the 5000. They said, okay, yeah, here, we'll call it 5000. Well, they decided to do that about 2 weeks before the NAMM show. So we had we were scrambling to get plastic parts made. They had 3500 engraved in them, and get all that plastic done out and get all the silk screen changed on all the parts, and we were building them the night before NAMM. And
how many?
So it became the 5000.
How many 3500s do you think were actually produced?
I think the exact number is 22, but I'm not exactly sure. The only difference in them is on the analog output board, the muting circuitry doesn't work. So if you turn them on, you might get a pop on the output. But other than that, 3500 is a 5000, a 5000 is a 3500. There's no difference in them at all.
But there's only 22 of those. So even though technically they pop, my guesstimate would be that they would still end up being a little bit of a collector's items there.
Right.
Yeah.
Now, but like you said, and we talked about this a little bit before the show, the 3500 name made so much more sense. And not to lambaste whoever it was in marketing that would do something like that, but from an outside perspective, that's one of the weird little quirks that actually prevented me from buying one. I refused to buy one because to me it meant, hey, this is our flagship, this is our step forward, this is the way forward, and I kept looking side-eye but the Z sampler,
right?
The Z sampler.
No, I know. Yeah,
so
we all.
Hurt my heart.
Yeah, the three of us, Dan, Alex, and myself, knew that going into it. It's you're dealing with a dedicated user base that looks at things like that. You can't disrespect that user base and think that, oh, well, they'll just think that it's better, and that was.
That was one of the questions that I was getting into when I think we were cut off. I don't know when the stream was cut off, but we kind of got into it a little bit. And the question was basically, what was it like going into, the MPC and also doing the MPK line and realizing how passionate the user base of that type of product is by comparison to, something like, a MIDI patch bay or whatever else,
Well, the MPK was my design, so I got to kind of do what I wanted with that. So that one wasn't really the issue. I think the only one that really had pads before that was Korg had made a little controller that had some pads on it. But the MPC, I mean, you've got to respect the legacy of the thing. It's got such a legacy. It's got such an established thing. It's people's musical instrument. It's like you can't take a saxophone and say, here, we're going to put a second bell on it, or we're going to, change the fingering and make it, sound totally different or play totally different. It's a musical instrument that people have developed techniques around. They've built their whole studios around. They built careers around.
Yeah,
but you can't take that and not respect all that legacy that comes with it. Now, the legacy creates an issue when you're trying to design a new product and you're trying to push it forward. Of people want all these new features, but you can't just start tagging stuff on because then you kill the workflow. Mm-hmm. And there's always that balance of feature count versus keeping it a musical instrument, keeping the workflow together. I remember Logic in the early days, in version 3, Logic allowed you to do everything. It's like every feature request that eMagic got at that time, they put into Logic, and it was a nightmare to use it. I mean, you had to set up the environment, and you had to manually do it, and it was such a nightmare to use the product because it had every feature you could probably want. It had, all kinds of logical operators for how you deal with MIDI. Oh, if the velocity is between this range and this range and this range, then you can output this note and do. You did crazy stuff that most people didn't ever need to access, and it was at the level that it was in your face all the time. It's like, well, wait, no, most people will never use this, so bury it somewhere in the user interface. But when you get so many features, you have to kind of dig through all this stuff and try to figure out, what's the biggest things. My my instrument design philosophy is what's the 90%?
Mm-hmm.
What do I have to do with the product 90% of the time? You know, the other 10%, you know, I would even divide that down to, you know, the 9% of, okay, what do I have to do? Well, sometimes I'll have to go set preferences or do little things like that. That last 1% can get buried somewhere, but that 90% has to be there, and it has to be in your face, and you've got to be able to use it, because that's your musical instrument.
Yep.
So, getting into the musical instrument aspect of it, now you're at Arturia, and you're creating things like I guess the Brutes. Was that the first products that you really dove into, or?
Yeah, the first product I proposed for Arturia was the MiniBrute product. I had worked with Arturia for a number of years, going back to when I was doing TV post-production. I was doing sound design on the side for Arturia just for fun. I think I did CS80 was the first thing I did sounds on, and then Mini V and a few other products like that. So I had worked with Arturia for a number of years, and it was at one point in time where I was working as a contractor, and I said, you know, if you're looking for a new product, here's one that other people won't build, and it's an analog mono synth that's not programmable. And some of the biggest dealers in the nation said, no, nobody wants those, and you know, all these people kept saying, no, nobody wants that. And luckily, Frederick Brun, the owner of Arturia, was able to see through, you know, all that stuff, and he trusted, you know, the team and everybody to build a great product, and trusted the vision behind it all, and so he did. Yeah. You know, it was his trust in it to allow that product to be made.
That was really kind of what started the rebirth of analog synths by larger manufacturers.
Definitely, yeah.
That was the first one, at least, you know, where I was. It was, you know, I wanted to get an analog synth, but there was only vintage, and they were priced at a premium, and they still had problems, you know.
Yeah.
And then that came out, and it was just like, you mean I can get this awesome sounding oscillator, this wild filter, which the fact that you guys used the Steiner Parker filter was really interesting, because you could have gone for the more widely known, you know, 24 dB transistor ladder filter on that.
Right. Yeah, I think that was
for something with more character, really, you know,
it's funny.
Or with a different character, we'll say.
Well, that project was funny because I proposed it at a time, you know, Akai had closed down some facilities, and all the people that were left went on to contractor status. And as a contractor, you could work for whoever. So I was proposing products to other companies, and they took it at that time. And then I went back on as full-time, so all of a sudden I couldn't work on it anymore. So it was really Yves Busson, and there's another guy named Antoine Beck, and a couple other guys that really took the initial concept of it and turned it into what the MiniBrute became. I can't take credit for that.
Mm-hmm.
You know, choosing the Steiner Parker was probably Yves Busson who said to use that instead. I know that he had used that. Yves Busson was the guy who did some of the wave shapers from his modular stuff that he did.
And he also has his own site as well for people that aren't aware. Like, you can go onto his website, and he even has a like a HackBrute website where he shows kind of modifications for it. So
yeah, Yves a great guy, and he you know, he brought a lot to that original MiniBrute. You know, as far as just ideas for features and functionality. So yeah, I can't take credit on that. I gave him the initial idea to do a small analog synth, and then those guys kind of took it from there.
And that thing really took off for Arturia too. I mean,
it did.
Yeah, big time.
Huge. Yeah, I came into the company right before it started shipping. You know, it was in the alpha states and stuff. And yeah, I was like, this is a game changer.
Was it direct from that to the MiniBrute and then the beatstep? Like, how did that all kind of play out? And the fact that they all have control voltage now.
Right.
Like, how did this all how did control voltage become part of Arturia's product model? Because previous to really the MiniBrute, you know, control voltage was kind of lost. Like, it wasn't back in major manufacturers.
Well, I mean, I saw the trend of the modular stuff happening going back to 2000, 2009, 2010, I saw that the stuff was coming back, and it was starting to surge up, and I could see the future of it at that point in time. So I was still at Akai then. I designed the Max 49 keyboard for them.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
And that one I put CV gate outputs on it and a step sequencer. And so that was the first product that I did where I said, hey, let's put CV gate on the thing. And so from that point when I came over into Arturia, I was like, yeah, we got to build products that have CV gate. It's got to have MIDI and it's got to have USB and it should have CV gate now, because of the way that there's so many people that are working in all these different methods.
Wow.
Was that like? Do you feel like people were surprised when you said you wanted to include CV and gate on these products?
Yeah. So yeah, at Akai, they were a little surprised by it. Some of the people didn't get it at the time.
I could imagine.
A bunch of the key people did get it though, and they allowed it to be put on there. And so that was, that was cool. The owner of the company was like, yeah, if you believe it needs to be on there, then put it on there. And
cool.
so that was cool.
Yeah, and now
but yeah, there were naysayers.
Oh, I'm sure, because just by the fact of the timeline, I mean, I remember when those things came out, it was like, it was really just, the analog revival was really just getting going.
Yeah, it was just starting out.
And it's crazy. It's crazy. The crazy thing about it now is that you see a lot of people using their MiniBrutes to run their modular. So
yeah, man. That's how I use mine. Yeah.
Yeah.
Definitely.
So it's crazy that how that just all played out. You seeing that vision and bringing that to pass, because I mean, Willie does that. Joe does that. So I mean, a lot of people use it in that way.
They're perfect for that, man. They're perfect. Any of the brutes are really perfect for integration with modular. I do remember when that Max 49 came out. Flux was like the only person in our immediate circle that got it. He was like, "Oh, dude, I got to get this." I'm like, I don't even know what CV is. I did. I was like, what does that mean? I don't care. I'm not doing that. I'm like, nah, man. Like, I don't know. They don't have faith. But now I get it. And then hearing you say it has a step sequence on it, which I didn't even realize at the time. Like, now I'm sitting here thinking, like, maybe I need to look on eBay, because yeah, I mean, but it just shows your foresight. Because where we're at now, it's just like that's all the rage, and it's. You gotta look for that stuff. Back then, Flux was like, I'm not getting any new MIDI controller unless it has CV. I'm like, why not? What? It doesn't. But now it's like, now I get it. So
yeah.
And I think that was honestly, I think that might have been even before my modular was really started, or if it was. It was like maybe just. But I knew that that's where I wanted to be. I knew that if I wanted to get all of this good stuff back here.
Right.
But I knew that, like Glenn is saying, like, you could see the writing on the wall that, this is where innovation is going right now, and hands-on control and all that sort of stuff. And that kind of brings me to the beatstep products that you've done. So you've got the beatstep and the beatstep Pro.
Yeah.
Now, those products are vastly different from anything else that had been out on the market prior to that. I can't think of anything else that was a standalone, sequencer, sequencer primary, really, as a standalone sequencer from a company like that, and then a controller also, but and then with CV. Where did that idea come from? Did that come from your own personal wantings, or like how did that come about?
Yeah, that one actually did. The beatstep Pro did. That's something that I use, and that's the way that I like to work. I mean, I've been using old sequencers since 1981. I used to use a little MC202 back in the 80s, tied to an 808 and all these kind of things. I still was using my Pro One's little step sequencer. I still use it to this day, synced together with the beatstep Pro. And it was just a product that I wanted to have. One other aspect of the modular community is that the modular community, it's the way that we describe it is it's 1,000 miles wide, but it's 6 inches deep. There's not a whole lot of people that are buying into the modular stuff yet. It's an underground thing still, and there's 1,000 products because it's all these guys. in garages. It's really cool because it's like the punk rock music scene, or it's like early hip hop, which were really do-it-yourself kind of music scenes. We have that same thing in the modular world today, where it's like it's not. Some of the bigger stores are kind of starting to take it, and so I wanted to come up with a product that is something that could sell to all of these people and could kind of, I hate to say mainstream modular. But
it did though.
Mainstream modular,
Yeah.
And that was
to say it though. That's the thing.
Yeah,
it's not hate to say that.
Right, because that's basically what you guys did, honestly. Like,
yeah, that was the thing with the MiniBrute was.
Right.
I wanted a synth that the guitar player in the band or the bass player, the singer could get. It's easy to use. It still sounds pro, and then it has this patch bass, so you could start to get into this and go, oh look, I can do this. Now I can buy something else and I can patch into that, and I can buy more stuff and patch in.
I remember the first time. I remember when I first got that thing and started messing with it. That's when it was like, okay, now I want other stuff that I can plug into.
Right.
Before, because Flux had been on me for the whole time. Like, man, you need to get them. I'm like, I'm not doing that. I don't want all those wires. I don't want to. I just want to play stuff. But then once that MiniBrute came out, and it was such an affordable thing. It was so affordable.
I was about to
sounding
say.
good, but it's like it has this just this little patch, just that little square of patch points, like opened up a whole gate, because it's like, oh man, now I'm looking for all other type of stuff that I can plug into. So it definitely I think it mainstreamed it for real. Like,
and you know what, that brings to mind too. It is a gateway drug, kind of, and it's certainly for me. But that brings to mind with the mini and the micro. With the mini and the micro, I like the micro much better than the mini. And I wonder, like, what was the defining line between the two? Where, I don't know, it just seems like when the micro came out, it's like, yo, this is even better.
Yeah.
I think it was just that patch point on there, and it was so small and at such a crazy price, man. And it had pretty much all of the similar functionality as the bigger one.
Right.
It was smaller, but then it also had that. It also had that patch bay.
The patch bay and
the sequencer. The sequencer too was crazy.
The sub fifth knob. Was like, okay, I'm sold. Patch bay and the sub fifth knob. Let's go.
The sub fifth thing was an invention of our lead analog engineer Bruno. I can't pronounce the French names. I always destroy them. I'm sorry to all my French friends.
I'm sure Bruno's okay with it.
Bruno's awesome. He's a great engineer. He's an awesome guy. Bruno came up with the whole. We wanted to do something a little different. You got to give it a little flavor. It's a new product. You don't want to just cut it down and just like, oh, okay, here we just cut this stuff out and here you go. So we wanted to do something that gives it a little different sound somewhere. And Bruno came up with the overtone series thing on the sub that is freaking awesome.
It's super awesome. I mean, the
Bruno's an amazing engineer. He's really creative.
Well, one of the things that I was going to say about that is when the micro came out, that was at a point where that was like a huge stepping off point, because then it was like you couldn't deny it. Okay, now you've got a product that was like like $300, I think. It was like $299 US. That had patch points on it, analog oscillator, analog filter. Not only an analog filter, but a really like interesting one. One that would work with harmonics in a really interesting way. And then the oscillator that's in this. And this is kind of one of the main things that I try to explain to people, is that the oscillator that's in the MiniBrute and MiniBrute is a really complex oscillator. I mean, like, it's a really robust. It might be just one oscillator and then a sub-oscillator, but it's got so much character to it and so much wave shaping that you can do with it.
Yeah.
I mean,
the way you can mix the waves.
If this was a Eurorack module, it would be a quite expensive Eurorack module on its own,
Right.
So the fact that it came out at such a low price point, and the fact that nowadays, these things are ubiquitous. You can get them anywhere, and they're accessible to people.
You're going to see them anywhere in every lab.
to the modular, to the modular movement, and to really not just modular movement, but like hip hop guys who are using FL Studio can now run FL Studio through an analog filter and sweep it and have fun with it. Whereas previously, unless you were buying, I mean, you could buy like a Sherman filter bank, or you could buy like a, what was the Filter Queen and that kind of stuff. But that stuff was well more expensive than this,
Right.
So it's like the value was insane,
It was, yeah.
No, I agree that, and that's the one thing that we have the ability, and we're not a big company. We're still a small company that pretends to be big. But
you do it well.
But we've got the manufacturing. I mean, I think just this year we've grown to 30 people. So.
Say that loud. Say that loud for me.
So just this year we've grown to 30 people. So. And
this is a point that I try to drive home when I talk to a lot of people, that understand that yes, you have really nice product artwork, and yes, you've got these great products, but it seems a common thread where people who aren't necessarily in the know seem to think that these companies are 500, 600 people companies and much larger.
Big corporations.
They think that these are massive corporations. So when I hear things like, okay, well, I put in a tech support question yesterday and it hasn't been a hit for you. I'm like, do you realize how many products they're selling and the size of the company and how hard that is to deal with? Like,
I mean, the biggest company I work for is Roland. And Roland US in its peak time was about 150, 160 employees in the US. Then they had 5 factories in Japan and all over the world, but Roland US was 160 people.
That's you put that into perspective of like shaver products, and it
right.
Just, you know what I mean? Like it's completely skewed. So,
we were looking at the Wall Street Journal one time at Roland, and one of the tech guys there looked at this article and saw that Purina Dog Chow did more sales in one day than Roland did in a year.
Glenn, I have a question for you. You mentioned that Eurorack is 1,000 miles wide and 6 inches deep, and how many guys are doing it in their garage and stuff, and so I kind of look at that as some of the bigger names like Roland and even Dave Smith that I think jumped into Eurorack haven't done as well as some of the smaller guys, just because of maybe their approach or the way they're kind of looking at things. Do you guys have any plans on trying to step in and do modular, actual modules, or is that something you guys are staying away from?
I won't ever say that we won't do them, because we may at one point. We don't have. I can say right now we don't have any modules in our, in our product landscape right now that we're working toward. I think that the individual modules are best served by the small guys.
Okay, gotcha.
I think that there's so many people that are doing such cool stuff that were never done before. It's almost, like earlier on, I got into modulars in the early 80s. LA City College and Pasadena College had Moog modular systems, and that's what I learned on. And I had an ARP 2600 and I had an Aries modular in the early 80s. And that's kind of my background, but all these things had really the East Coast modular attitude and feel.
Right. And
like the West Coast stuff, the Buchla gear was, it was always kind of like that's like the weird music. That's the stuff at Cal Arts and that kind of thing. But it was really cool, but it just kind of never made its way into the mainstream of synthesis. And it's really cool now seeing that kind of an attitude and that kind of a direction is like the norm now. Like the math module and some of these other modules that really kind of have taken off from that West Coast style of voltage control gates and generators that can be an envelope or an LFO.
Right.
A little bit of everything. I love seeing that stuff, but to me, I think that the modules are still best served by these small operations.
Gotcha. That makes sense.
Companies can come in and generate control systems and ways to musically control the things. And
right.
That's actually what I was going to say. That's the thing where you find your lane at. Like I think aim for a company like Arturia or any bigger, more wider known company than the smaller independents creates the conduits and the interfaces that kind of bridges the gaps.
Right.
So I think it's a good place to be.
Yeah, I mean, there's stuff that we can do that the little guys can't because we have the manufacturing abilities, and there's stuff that little guys can do that we can't because the sales volume won't be there, so we can't, we can't build things like that. So I mean, I think it's a great relationship that we have with they're building their stuff, we're building our stuff, and and it's all cool.
Yeah.
Well, speaking of that, I want to build in. I want to kind of build on that fact and talk about something that you can build that the little guy can't build, and that would be the MatrixBrute. Now, the MatrixBrute is an impressive project in the fact that this is a monosynth, and it's a large format monosynth.
Oh man!
But man, is it deep! And I really just kind of want to. I don't want to completely cover everything that I asked you at NAMM because if people go back and watch the NAMM interview that I had with you, we covered a lot of good material in there, which was and it was really great that you were so on top of that because I've dealt with a lot of people that I'll ask questions like that and they'll just flounder on me. But some of the things that I wanted to ask,
flounder on some stuff.
And that's fair, but some of the things I wanted to ask you about on that is about some of the features that weren't quite ready at NAMM. Okay. So the MatrixBrute's been a pretty big project, and at NAMM you had talked about, I'm going to kind of work Bob Moog style here, all right? So I'm going to work left to right.
Okay.
The oscillator section on it. What kind of work is being put into that, and what was maybe... how was it at NAMM, and is there any changes? What's being done? What do you got on the plate for it?
Yeah, there were changes at NAMM. What they did is the power supply and some of the regulation wasn't all done at that time, so they had to remove the circuit, what we call the oven. They built a little thing called an oven that sucks a lot of current that heats up, and that's why like the MiniBrute and the MicroBrute are really stable.
Is it like a Tempco type thing, or?
Yeah, basically, it basically heats up that part of the circuit and gets it stable really quickly. Okay. And so they had that disabled at NAMM, so they took like half an hour to get stable at NAMM. That's all been done, and now they said it's going to take like 2 minutes or something for it to get to come to stability. Mm-hmm. Nice. So yeah, starting on the oscillators, that's one of the things that is happening. The other thing I think we talked about it in the video was the ladder filter. When you kick up the resonance,
there's no Q compensation.
There's no Q compensation. There wasn't any at that time. Now there's Q compensation that's there. Nice. The drive circuits into the filters weren't really working properly. Now they're working right. What else? There's a whole lot of firmware control because it's all programmable. We have everything. There's tons of VCAs built into every circuit, and so there's a lot of things we can do in firmware to change ranges, values, and stuff like that. All that stuff's being scaled as we're starting to get units. I'm hoping to get some of the first production or pre-production units here in the next couple weeks, and then we're going to dial all those parameters in more, raise gain in some areas, lower gain in others. The analog effects, the output levels were really soft before, and the analog reverberator didn't really work well at NAMM. Those have all been sorted out. We'll probably still fine-tune the reverberator aspects because there's a whole bunch of bucket brigade devices, and our other engineer, Thierry, he came up with this whole thing of the reverberator, and what if we put different delay times in every one of the bucket brigades and create this kind of strange new effect. And so we're still fine-tuning all those aspects.
Question for you on that. Well, actually, before I even get to that, at NAMM we kind of discussed it, and I don't know if it's a firmware update post-production or what, but you had alluded to the fact of paraphonic play.
Yeah, that's all. That's firmware, and we don't have that in here yet. But yeah, all the paraphonic stuff and how that works, most of that's firmware routing.
Now, when you talk about paraphonic play, you were talking about how many oscillators were total on this thing? Was it 3 or was it 4?
It's 3 oscillators. It's 2 of the Brute style oscillators and a third that's just the 4 basic wave shapes.
Okay, and you're saying that you're going to be able to pitch play each one of those with a different key and then all through the same filter, or will you be able to use both filters independently with trigger, or is that decided yet?
That isn't 100% decided as of yet. We're going to play with some different things and see what they do. The main thing that we're looking right now is we're considering a couple different modes. One is because oscillators 1 and 2 can sound the same, and oscillator 3 will not sound the same as the other two. You have the option of make it 3-voice paraphonic with all 3, but the third's not going to have the wave shapers, or just limit it to 2-voice paraphonic so that both of them will sound the same.
Now the envelopes on there, are they the exact same envelopes that were in the Brute series?
No, everything in here is totally redone because everything's new CPUs and new firmware. So the envelopes are actually firmware, and the LFOs are actually firmware.
Okay, so they're digital.
Yeah, those are digital control there.
Now let's talk about that.
We can rechange, shapes and how they work within the firmware on those.
Okay, cool.
Nice.
Yeah. The matrix on there, and we were talking about this a little bit previous to the show. We were talking about how the CV matrix or CV inputs and outputs work along with the matrix. Now, that's going to be per row for input, correct? Meaning that you can have multiple modulations set up on one row, and then that will be summed to along with whatever CV is coming in on that row, correct?
That's correct. Yeah, there's at one point, and it might have been a video where I alluded to you can patch into the matrix, and you really can't patch into the matrix. The CV inputs are all true CVNs that plug directly to the control voltages that run everything analog here. So what you get is you get that CVN plus whatever channel on the matrix comes up to here. So if you plug into the VCO1 pitch, it's all these 16 matrix modulation sources plus whatever external source you plug into that. Now when you take the CV outs, it's all of these matrix mod sources going to that CV out. So it goes to the and to the CV outs at the same time.
That's crazy, man. That's crazy.
That is crazy.
That's crazy.
I'm gonna throw a picture up of that.
Right.
Yeah, so each destination's matrix plus external CV.
Man.
Okay, that makes sense.
Yeah, it's not overriding one or the other. So
That's gonna be nice.
Flexibility.
Yeah, that's gonna be nice, man.
Anything ever been like that? But I know it's not like I know every synth that's ever been made. You know what I mean? But I don't recall ever hearing anything that's made like that.
Yeah.
At least not that I'm aware of.
So the Matrix Brute, is there a set release date on that, or is that still pretty open? How's that going for you?
It's not set just because we want to make sure that we get the thing right. We can't at a product at this price point we can't ship it too early.
And we're looking at what, $17.99 or?
I think it's $18.99, $19.99, right in that area. But yeah, we're still looking at July, but we're not sure. We may end up holding that date depending on where we are at things. We've got to make sure that it's right.
Right. Definitely. Yeah.
I have some questions that you may not be able to answer, and that's okay. But I have a good friend of mine, Peter Grenider, and he...
Plan B, right?
Yes, exactly. Plan B modular, and now he has ear modular, electroacoustic research. And I was kind of talking to him a little bit, and he's friends with a mutual friend, Mr. Niall Steiner. And
Niall's a good friend of mine.
exactly. So what I wanted to ask you about is the Steiner Parker in the Matrix Brute has been moved to a 4-pole system.
Yes.
How did that come about?
Well, we wanted to give it a new sound. At one point, Niall had mentioned to me that, hey, you can make that, into a 24 dB per octave by just doubling it up and ganging it together. And Bruno had already kind of known that, and Eve had known that as well. And but we wanted to, change up the sound of the filter a little bit and give you more options on it. So that was.
So is it basically two of them chained in series?
Yeah, that's basically how you take a filter stage. Is if you got, one, 6 dB per octave filter, you chain 2 to get a 12, you chain 3 to get an 18.4 to get 24 dB per octave.
The reason why I was asking is because I know that he's coming out with a new filter in Eurorack soon that is going to be a 24 dB, Steiner filter in there, and apparently they did it slightly differently. So that's why I was kind of wondering about that. So maybe.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know the exact circuit details on that. I know that it's something that Bruno and I think Bruno may have done it on his own. He may have consulted with Eve on it as well, but I just remember Niall talking about it. I know
that I've done it just by chaining brutes together. I've done that a few times, and actually I've chained 3 brutes together, so I've gone even further. But it really is a really cool sound that you can get out of it that way. I remember Joe remembers when I used to do that. That was before I think I even had the modular set up. I was chaining multiple brutes together just to get that steep slope on it, and it sounds really cool when you map it to the mod wheel. So the whole production of this unit, people seem to be really concerned about what's the build of this thing going to be like? How substantial is it? Do you have any idea about how heavy this thing is going to be, and what the how this thing is being prepared and being manufactured?
Well, I think on one of your post-NAM shows I was watching, I think you guys were talking about the build and the weight, and I think that St. Joe said that the thing's really heavy, and he said for Bryce, it's one hand, but we can pick it up. It's an all steel chassis. The chassis on the bottom, the tops, the side panels, it's an all steel chassis. So, and it's pretty thick steel. We've got to keep it where it's not going to flex and damage the PCBs and the thing.
Definitely.
It's very heavy. I mean,
wow.
Don't hurt yourself.
Bryce, but I just work chest and arm.
Bryce is our resident Thor.
Yeah,
Bryce like a hammer.
Bryce like right here. Yeah,
The funny thing is like when you see his picture in this web show, nobody can tell that Bryce is actually like 95 feet tall and made of complete iron.
Yeah.
So the reason one of the other things I wanted to bring up about that is the key bed. What type of key bed are you using in that thing?
It's a key bed from a different manufacturer. We had some quality issues with a key bed from a different company in our key labs, and in the first run of MiniBrutes. Because of the quality issues in the first run of MiniBrutes, we actually took the MiniBrute away from that one manufacturer, moved all manufacturing. So if you remember, there was a MiniBrute thing where we shipped a bunch, and then all of a sudden you couldn't get them for like 4 months. And then all of a sudden they kind of trickled back in, and that's when we moved our manufacturing because of the quality issues. So all of our manufacturing is now at this other facility. It was funny, I was contacted by a guy from another very well-known synth company, and they're using the keyboards from this previous one. And they called me up, they emailed me and said, hey, did you guys have a lot of problems with these guys? And it's like, oh, yeah.
Well, listen, I mean, in all honesty, this is all stuff that can be researched through the web, but you guys have been pretty upfront about clearing these problems up, right? And
I mean, we've been replacing key beds as quickly as we could on units. People call up and they've got a broken keyboard, we replace the things.
So just in the sake of being upfront about everything, I actually replaced the keybed in one of mine. And after I did that, though, I haven't had any problems. Are those replacement keybeds a different manufacturer or the same manufacturer or what?
We're doing everything through this other manufacturer now.
Okay, good. Yeah, because once I replaced it, I haven't had any issues. But I wanted to be sure that once I replaced it, I wasn't going to have any.
And even the previous manufacturer, it's not that they don't make good stuff. It's that they had a run of plastic that wasn't mixed correctly, and so it made it really brittle.
Yeah, a lot of times I've seen that happen in a lot of different products where like an oil or something will get into a plastic. Next thing you know.
Yeah, and that's basically what happened is that the plastic itself got corrupted. And so you get a keyboard and there'd be a bunch that were fine, but there'd be a couple that might just pop heat or cold or something. So.
Okay, so now I want to switch gears a little bit because we talked a lot about hardware, but you guys are also major software company, and V Collection is a huge release, not just for you guys but for all the people out there producing. So when V Collection drops something new, there's not many companies out there that like drop a whole heap of product like that all at once and that everybody kind of goes bananas about. You guys are one of the top 3 in that, and really top 2 in that. And I gotta say, me personally, I got super hyped when I got to play with the Synclavier. So I want to talk about a lot of the V Collection, but the Synclavier to me is like, I don't know that there's been another Synclavier that's virtual. Do you know of any?
UVI has one.
Yeah, they did a sample library of it.
Sample based,
but not modeled, right?
But no, it's not modeled. It's not a synth. It's sample based.
Now, how did that come about? You guys actually had Cameron Jones on that, right?
Yeah. Every time we do a new V Collection, then we come up with our list of what instruments do we want to put into the next V Collection. And so we, get a long list of all the stuff that we'd like to put in it, and we start to weed that down. And Synclavier has always been one of the things that I loved. Going back to when I was in school at LA City College. I did a little college report on the upcoming digital synthesis in about 1984, and I got back then New England Digital had an LA office, Fairlight had an LA office, and PPG had an LA office, and so I got tours at all of these things and got to sit down with the units for a day, and this was like my dream.
Yeah, you couldn't just go anywhere and be near a Fairlight.
No. I'm trying to take care of. Also, I used to sneak into the NAMM show as a kid, and I would get, all the brochures and stuff. So I've still got my brochures from the Synclavier.
Wow.
From the early days of Synclav, even like a music example.
Wow.
You know what's funny is
something going back is the sequential circuits made notebooks, little folder books, and sequential circuits folders.
I actually collect that stuff myself when I go to if I open up these are mirrors behind my modular.
Don't do it.
No, I'm not going to, but I have bags of I save all those things just because it's you can't get that stuff anywhere else, and I'm
I've got the Fairlight price list. I've got an old Buchla price list with the Buchla 400, and I collected that stuff. I was a fanboy, and I've got a 3-ring binder that I put all that stuff into, and I still got it. I've had it for 30 years.
Glenn's a nerd.
Yeah.
That's great. So he was actually involved in the project of actually coding this synthesizer.
Yeah, Cameron Jones was the original guy. It was John Chowning came up with FM synthesis, and they took John Chowning's work and basically started coding it about 1972, I think. It was the music department lead, John Appleton, who wanted to do the project, and then he brought in Sidney Alonso and then Cameron, who was a student. Sidney and I think Sydney was the instructor, Cameron was one of the students, and they had him start coding it. So he was the original guy that coded this stuff. He's really the Bob Moog of digital synthesis, because the synth clavier was the first, commercially available computer music instrument. Before that, it existed in like Bell Laboratories, and other research facilities and some schools and stuff, but this is the first commercially available thing that generated music from a computer. And it's really historic when you think of what Cameron and those guys did back then. He's truly the Bob Moog of digital synthesis. And to me, it was a great honor to get to work with somebody like that on this project. And
it's also really important to note that he lived in Wilmington, Delaware for a while, which is where I live. So.
That's not him. I don't know who that is.
Yeah, I was getting to his.
That's Chowning. Yeah.
Yeah, there we go. But so this synth is a new synth for the whole V collection, and something about that I wanted to note was that the entire V collection's basically been redone. You've got new graphical interfaces that are high resolution for all of them, and then for the vast majority of them, you had to tear them apart, right? Can you tell us a little bit about what went into creating this version of the V collection and how this V collection differs from V collection 4?
Well, what we did is a few years back, right around the time of the SEMV, they started redesigning how we build our code. The code used to be the DSP engine and the graphic user interface were kind of wrapped around each other. They were tied together. And what we did is we built a development system that allows us to take DSP separate, take the graphic user interface separate, and then you can tie the two together basically with XML files. And it makes the code much more modular and much easier to deal with. So you're just dealing with the DSP, you're just dealing with the GUI. Whereas before, with the two tied together, it made it, much more difficult code to deal with, especially for dealing with bugs. So they had to go back to, like Modular V, which was a 13-year-old product now, and CS80 and all these old ones that were tied together like that, and basically untangle them all, pull the DSP separate from the graphics, and then it gave them the chance to actually work on the DSP. There was a lot of that code was, 3 generations, 4 generations of programmers ago who worked on that stuff who are no longer there. And so pulling all this stuff apart gave them the ability to get into it and work with it more. It got us the ability to fix a ton of bugs.
How long of a process is that to start at? Like, where was the start point of trying to pull all that stuff apart?
I don't remember exactly. It was probably close to a year and a half ago when they started the first synth that they decided to pull out like that. Yeah, it was probably about a year and a half of work.
Now,
That's a long process.
Not just redoing the graphical interfaces, but even a lot of the legacy products, you got to work on the actual engine code because you were already pulling it apart. Now, obviously, you have things like the SEMV, which were introduced not long ago.
Right.
Yeah.
And frankly, in previous V collection, if you listen to the SEMV and you listen to, honestly, the Mini V or really any of the other products, it was very clear that SEMV was a step beyond. Like
that's my favorite out of all of them. I use that a lot. It's noticeable.
It shook me when I was at NAMM because I was like, wow, this is really great. And what's his name? That was on B-Boy Tech Report with us.
Mike Acosta.
Mike Acosta.
Oh yeah,
Mike
that's
Acosta
what he
was
doing
demoing it. We kind of sat and spoke for a while about it, and that is a wonderful product. And was that kind of like the first of them forward, or?
Yeah, that really was. That was, it's the guy who's now our director of engineering who actually worked on the SEM back then, Adrian, and he worked on that project, and it was him and another guy that kind of redesigned our TAE. Our TAE has evolved over the years. That's our true analog emulation. And it goes from where it started off with, then there was kind of a 1.5 version, now that's what we internally call a 2.0 version of it. And
oh, wow.
so the newer stuff gets this newer module. Now we've got a new DSP guy who's working on the next generation of the analog modeling that's going even further. And the first thing that he's done is he rebuilt the SEM, or not the SEM, the Mini-V filter in this new release. So the Mini-V has this kind of third generation TAE design in the thing, and it sounds amazingly close. I mean, we sat with the model, with all of them, we sit next to the real hardware and adjust the models. But with this one, we had I was in France the last time, and Yves on was sitting with the Model D, and he set the resonance right to the point that it was like almost going to oscillate. And he did the same thing with the software model, and it was like, oh, this is cool, because they're doing that same kind of, you know, is it going to oscillate? Is it not going to?
That's like that's my dream right there. Is like that nerdy level. Yeah. Like these guys know that's what I kind of live for. And that's really cool though, that to see these things being reworked in that way.
Right.
The GUI on these things, was there much discussion about, you know, the changes to how the graphical interface would look?
Well, the main thing was we wanted to try to pull everything together, because we kind of had 3 generations of browsers going as well. We had the original stuff, then we had like at Jupyter 8, it kind of changed a little bit, and then again at SEM it changed a bit again. So we wanted to unify the browsing experience, unify the experience between every one of the things, so that it's not a little bit different on each one.
I did get a I'm doing this strictly for the haters that were commenting to me. Well, they need to be represented, so I'll help them out. But I had a great conversation. Actually, I think Joe was involved in the conversation. It might have actually been on one of your YouTube videos, Joe. The guy talking about the sound map being.
Oh yeah.
And I know that I spoke to you previously about sound map, and we were kind of talking about how sort of archaic it was, but it was gone. And when you told me that it was gone, I was like, well, okay, I totally understand that. Not 4 days later did I see a comment where somebody was upset that the sound map was gone, and I was kind of surprised by that, to be honest. So the sound map was basically a way of making pseudo-random patches, and it's now gone. Do you think something like that will come back? Is that something that you don't want to see come back? How are you feeling about that?
Well, sound map was kind of weird because it never really did exactly what it was designed to do well. You know, it was meant to really kind of use some kind of parameters to come up with a way to sort out the sounds, put them into this space, and that if you like this sound and this sound, you click somewhere between these things and it will generate some kind of an intelligent evolution of those sounds. And it never really did that well. At first off, how it separated the sounds and qualified one as this corner or that was really kind of strange. And we're working on some other technology right now. I'm not going to talk about it at this point. But,
Fair enough.
But yeah, I mean, we want to be able to do something like that, but we want it to actually be a little bit more controllable. Yeah, we want it to work. And we want it to be more controllable, you know. You know, if I call up this dark bass sound and this bright pad, then I want the best of both of them.
Yeah,
it should be a true parent-child and not just a parameter range thing.
You know, I can think of like, I mean, Core had some morphing things from Native Instruments, you know, and Absinthe with the way that it does it. And what's that? What is it? Simplant? Simplant had ways of like doing.
Oh yeah, by who's that by? Yeah, I know what you're talking about. It looks like an actual plant.
Yeah, it looks like a plant. So there's been a few different products that kind of have played with the whole like evolutionary, you know, way of doing.
Yeah, typically what they're doing is they like to take, you know, you take one set of parameters and another set of parameters, and you find the average between them, and you try not to affect some that are going to, you know, mess up, like pitch, for example, or something. And we want to do something that's even more intelligent than that, where it can actually recognize what the sound quality of this sound is and the sound quality of this sound is, and not just do a parameter blend, but really do it based off of sound quality. So,
well, I just want to say that
there's technology we're working on that.
The new V collection was exactly what I needed to upgrade, because I was still at 4. I was still at V collection 3, and this just to be able to resize the GUI was all I needed. That was like major for me, because adjusting the parameters on the CS80 was like you had to get right in and like what's going on, and that was like that was kind of a hassle. So just that alone got me to upgrade right away. And then the browser.
Man.
Yeah, I mean, we went through and retagged all the sounds and everything and made the browsing experience a lot better throughout. Yeah, the one complaint that I've seen on some of the forums is, well, the programs are so big now, and it's like, well, yeah, we've got 4K resolution images in there to be able to scale this thing up. So, most of the program size now is in the GUI.
So you gotta just tell them up your hard drive game, homie.
Well, and it's not even up the hard drive. It's like, oh, now we're 300 meg instead of. It's like, okay.
Well, we're not everybody, right? That's
we're
what
not using Logic version 3.
Yeah. So that,
I think
Mac from 2001, you should probably upgrade that.
So importing previous presets to the current crop. It's been stated in a FAQ that you guys are working on like a preset tool for the masses to import from previous is there any kind of timeline on that, and is that something that's going to be for for each individual synth, or is that going to be across the board? Do we know anything about that?
I don't know if it's going to be for each individual synth or across the board yet. We are working on the tool to convert the presets and get them over into the new format. That will be happening. We've already kind of set some timelines for the next 3 releases that we're going to do. We're coming up with all of the features that we want to add to things. There's stuff that we wanted to get into a Synclavier that we didn't put in there. That we're going to add even more stuff to the engine.
Nice.
Are you allowed to say any more about the Synclavier updates?
No, not at this time.
Okay. I gotta say, that is just, it's such a fun synth to use, and one of the first things that I noticed about it when I started using it was it's really common that I found where I'm not going to say names, but certain companies want to try to trick people's ears, okay? And they do that by doing things like saying, oh, this is a vintage emulation, when really it's just a bit crusher and sample rate reducer. That kind of pisses me off. But I will tell you that immediately when I used Synclavier V, I wasn't hearing that. I was hearing like something different. There was something that sounded old to me, for lack of a better word. Like the output of it can get gritty in a special way that's not just a simple brittle bit crushing way.
Right, so they got it right.
Well, yeah, and that's kind of what I wanted to get into was with Cameron Jones working on this project. I don't know what he's been doing since Ned, and since I haven't really followed up on him like that. But is this like a return to call? Is he kind of grabbing right into it? Like, what's happening there?
Well, he's been, he got the Synclavier name back. He acquired that. After NED went down, he went to Fostex and worked on their disc recorder, the Foundation. So he's stayed active. He's stayed plugged into the Synclavier. He's made different interfaces so that you can run your Synclavier off of a standard Mac laptop nowadays. As far as the monitor and all that kind of stuff. So he's stayed in it. He's been in the thing, and he's had the code base. For him, it was getting to revisit some of this stuff, fix things, add new features. He's really excited about it, and it's really cool. When you talk to him, it's like a kid, getting to see his toy come back that he had lost, or
So
something like.
he's still passionate.
Oh yeah, he's really passionate about it. I mean, once again, I said it was an honor to work with the guy, and I really mean it. Just
It's awesome.
his passion, his love for what he created, and getting to come back into it, and having somebody kind of come up fresh and go, hey, could we do this? What about this? What about this? He was like, wow, nobody's thought about the FM engine since 1983, and he was loving it because that's why he did it. He was into the sound. He loved the sound.
Now he actually emulated the output DAC on this thing and everything. Like, it wasn't just that he recreated the engine of it, but he actually recreated the entire synthesis of the entire product of it, really.
Right. That was what he did, is he wanted to get the sound quality, and including like the noise floor and the errors that you would get in the DACs and that kind of stuff. He did all the DSP on it. We didn't do any of the DSP. We did all the graphic interface, but he did all the DSP. So it's 100% of there. Yeah.
Nice.
Which the graphic interface on that, when you I want to recommend this to people because I don't think I noticed it the first time I opened it, and then I opened it again after I talked to you, Glenn. The second screen where you can actually pull up the screen and see the envelopes and everything, and you can actually grab and pull things, looks so fantastic. I mean, that to me is my favorite interface. That and the Stage 73V or Stage, how is it? I can't remember. Yeah, Stage B. Those two are probably my favorite interfaces on it, but that secondary screen where you can actually mess with the envelopes of the partials and you can really get into it is so phenomenal. And the fact that you have this vintage sound but is newly accessible and in a way that you can really just dive in sounds great.
Right.
There's been
the dream come true.
I want to see if I can actually pull it up just really quick. There's been, and I'm not actually going to give this a whole lot of credence. So in one of the Facebook groups that I'm a member of, a guy posted a picture of a spectrograph of a actual synclavier, supposedly, because we haven't actually seen it and we don't actually know what it is. But it shows all these extra little harmonics in there, and then the synclavier V. And synclavier V looks smooth, but then again I asked them and I didn't get any of the control, so I don't know what bit rate they were running synclavier V at and all that stuff. But for the most part, it was pretty darn close to dead on. There was a little bit more noise in the synclavier V. I don't know if they ran synclavier V out and back into the audio interface, so I don't know what the control was.
Yeah.
But
and we have a noise floor control in the presets, and you can turn the noise floor up or down or off.
And that's what I was about to get to. That's what I was about to get to, is one of the things that I found in synclavier V is that you guys left in all these little parameters where you can basically make it a dirty version of the old system, a kind of middle ground system, or you can even go and turn it into a new thing where you run it at, I believe, 24-bit, and you can have this thing pristine and really get these beautiful harmonics that are smooth out of it. So I'm really looking forward to see where that goes.
Yeah, the original had like an 86 dB noise floor on it, minus 86 dB noise floor on it, and it was 8-bit. So yeah, we can turn off the noise floor and turn it to 24-bit processing if you want. So
now, just
that's all Cameron's doing. He even had like parameters for DAC offsets and other crazy things like that. That when we started playing with them, it's like, yeah, you don't really hear the difference that much. So we took them out, but we kept the core aspects of the noise floor and the bit reduction.
Now, before we close out, I'm gonna kind of rapid fire hit you with just a couple of other products that are in V Collection, because V Collection is so huge that I could waste your time for years and pick your brain on. But I'm gonna kind of hit you with just a couple of different things. One, you have the Rhodes behind you, and we were talking before. That's kind of the baseline for the stage that you guys did, and you kind of compared it.
This is the instrument that we used as the model against it. This is a 1973. It's kind of right in the sweet year of Fender Rhodes pianos. It's a stage. It has the original tone control, which was basically a low-pass filter. In about 74, they turned it into the bass boost, which was basically a high-pass filter.
That's what I have.
Yeah, and so we actually took the sound straight off of the harp and used that as the reference for our model. And then we had our new DSP guy model the schematics for the 74 and for the 73 and earlier version, and then for the suitcase versions as well.
So they don't use any samples in them at all? They're completely modeled? Is
Totally
it the same with the pianos? Are the pianos sampled or are the pianos modeled?
Fully modeled.
Fully modeled, okay.
Wow.
Because I had a lot of people ask me about that, and they were wondering whether
No,
or
it's not a hybrid. There's some other instruments out there that are hybrid that they use a little bit of a sample and they use a physical model to fill in some of the other things like resonances and stuff. These are full physical models all the way through.
Okay. The TAE, now is that more of a just analyzing the sound and the waves that are coming out of the output, or are you guys doing things like, you know, checking along a circuitry and modeling each component? Like, how does that work out?
Yeah, it's more component modeling. We go back to the original schematics of the original units, and it models every resistor and cap and op amp.
Wow.
So that's what TAE is in our modeling. Then we sit down afterwards and go, okay, how well did the math work out from this to this? And then we sit down with the hardware unit, and then they tweak the parameter ranges and the values, make sure that the ranges of the knobs and everything work out okay. But so it starts off as a mathematical model based on the circuit design, and then at the end of it, it becomes a model that gets tweaked based on the actual sound, the actual
So it's kind of a
cutoffs.
combination there.
Nice.
Yeah. You have to do it as a combination.
Yeah.
Because an analog circuit behaves in its own way, and like all these old gear, I mean, most of them had 5 and 10% components in them, so every one had a little bit different sound.
With the TAE, did you say that, like, with the whole revamp that you did with the DSP, has the TAE been revamped too, or is that still pretty much the same as always?
The TAE is always getting modified and getting updated, and the TAEs are our process and how we do that, and the algorithms that we use within it. So they've always been updated. I mean, like every year that something new comes out, or a way that we find to optimize something better, to get it to work better, they've always get updated. There's just times where you get little updates and you get kind of a big update, a big technology change.
Now, is the Origin dead? Like, do you all still make the Origin? I'm totally ignorant on that thing, but I know the TAE was huge. It was a huge part of the Origin.
Well, it was all the same. It was all the same algorithms that were being used in the plugins. It was in the Origin. Yeah, Origin. No, that product went end of life. Sadly, it's a beautiful instrument. It sounds amazing.
It is. Yeah.
Fun to use. What happened in that product? Well, what happened in that product was that that was Arturia's first hardware that they built. And for a company to take that on as your first hardware project.
Wow.
Is either crazy or ballsy.
Yeah. So I mean, they learned a lot about building hardware at that time. But one thing that they did is they used these Tiger Shark DSPs, and the DSPs themselves went end of life.
Okay.
So we bought up every one that we could, and we built as many units as we could, and have kept some spares to be able to repair units as they go out. But that is a victim of end of life components.
You don't happen to have one of those in your studio, do you?
I see it. It's right back there.
Oh, I didn't see it. I was looking at that and I thought the screen was like a hole in the rack, and I was like, what's going on there?
I'd recognize that thing anywhere.
I did sound design on that when I was working at Akai. I was actually doing sound design on Origin for that.
Such a cool product too. Yeah.
It's a beautiful
Do you
instrument.
think there's any possibility of, in the distant future, Arturia revisiting something like that?
Maybe. I'm not sure. the way that it was designed, it was difficult for most users. Nowadays it's probably more in its prime as people are getting into modulars. When it came out, it was probably it was a little ahead of the modular curve, so people didn't get it.
That's what I've always said, Glenn. I remember telling a buddy of mine about the origin, and I was explaining it, and then so when I thought back on that conversation, I was like, that's modular, just it was like software based or inside the box. And like that's what was so special about it. I found that when I started over these last couple of years considering getting into the modular synthesis, like the same conversations I was having about modular synthesis, you could take a filter from this thing, to take a VCO from that thing. You know what I mean? Like that's the same conversation I was having about the origin when it came out.
Yeah, the Origin and the Nord G2 modulars were like the two big software modulars. Going back to Kaima and stuff like that. But the Origin has an amazing sound quality. I used to have an Andromeda A6, and I sold the thing because I never really liked it. I never got into the user interface. I love the sound, but not the user interface. And I basically replaced it with the Origin in my personal setup, and the Origin covered anything that I would have done with the A6.
Wow.
I always wanted one of those things,
man. Yeah, me too.
The Origin, man.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a pity that we couldn't build more and that it never took off the way that it should have or they expected it to.
And I tell you, as a fact of what it kind of did, you can look at the System 1 from Roland, and it's a similar kind of vibe. It's definitely not as deep as the Origin in that you can't change individual components.
Right.
But then you look at things like it and having its different plug-in modules, basically inside of the hardware, and then you can also look at products like Diva from Yuhi, which are basically like an Origin, in a software form. Would you guys consider doing a software that will allow you to interact with the different models that you've created from V Collection into one?
Oh yeah, considered that. We've considered that many times. We've just got to figure out if that's the way that we want to go.
It's not about what you want.
Clear path.
I try to make sure people understand this. It's about what I want.
Well, I want to know about the key lab, not the key lab, but the key step. We didn't get to talk about that. There it goes.
Oh wow! Look at that.
So
there it is.
So, what made you go from the beat step to the key step?
Because you went from pads, you still needed keys, and you needed polyphonic sequencing. So that was kind of the two things. They're really made to be a companion product with each other. You can use MIDI in or out, or use the DIN sync in and out. Run the two together, and it gives you a different type of thing. So you've got your two mono sequences and a drum sequence on the BeatStep Pro. This adds poly sequences in with it as well.
Yeah, I'm really excited to try that out because that has CV on it as well, right? CV and gate output.
It's got a CV gate. And then a third CV out, which can be either velocity, aftertouch, or the mod wheel.
Nice.
So you get other control as well.
Tell us a little bit about that key bed as well.
This key bed, it's a slim key. It's not a mini key. It's the next size down. But it's our own tooling. We built this one ourselves. It's an actual key bed, which what that means is a lot of the mini keys, they actually use a plastic hinge, and it's the plastic it's just the friction in the plastic itself that pulls it back, the elasticity in the plastic. These actually have a real springed key bed, just like you'd find in a full-size key bed.
Wow, nice.
So it's much more playable, it's much more responsive. You don't look at it and it looks like, teeth that need braces, it's all like nice and lined up. And, it's meant to be a musical instrument, but we still wanted it, at a 119 price point. So, you got CV gate in and out, you've got MIDI in and out, full-size MIDI in and out, you got USB in and out, polyphonic sequencer with 64 steps, 8 voices per step, and an arpeggiator.
Can that
And
thing?
when is that ship?
I'm sorry, what was that?
I was asking if it could be bus powered.
Yeah, it's totally bus powered via USB or standalone via just a regular power jack.
And when is it shipping?
Actually, a bunch of them were just at Moogfest. Guitar Center had the first units, and they sold a bunch of units at the Moogfest. So they're starting to hit the country.
Awesome.
They'll probably be hitting in real numbers here in the next few weeks. So.
Nice.
I'm going to touch on one last thing, and that's going to be the iOS situation from Arturia. So you guys have done the iMini V, and then you've done iProfit, right? Yep. And now you have iSpark out, and iSpark, I've actually been using it lately.
And iSynth too.
And and ISM also. And do those differ greatly in engine-wise from the actual VSTs, or is it same code ported? How does that work out?
It's the same code ported. Sometimes if you want them to run on the older machines, you have to change your amount of oversampling in the filters and that kind of stuff that takes a lot of CPU. But it's the same code ported across from one to the other.
Oh,
and that's why you can share patches from one to the other without a problem.
Oh, okay.
And as I told you, I'm going to say it again, I'm really hoping that the modular inside of Spark is expanded upon, because I've been doing some sound design inside of Spark, and I found that there's a full-on modular is inside of Spark, and I don't think a lot of people realize that. But man, is that a powerful engine.
Yeah, a lot of people don't realize how powerful Spark is as a drum machine. You know, and it's not trying to be a machine or an MPC. It's its own thing. It's trying to be a drum synthesizer. And yeah, the modular engine in that's actually kind of based on the Origin modular engine.
Wow.
If you really take it back. So.
Oh boy, now I want one.
So yeah, I mean we're looking at what to do with Spark next. We've got some plans that we want to do. Right now we're just working out timelines because once again we're a small company and we can't do everything we want at one time. So we're trying to figure out where we're going to fit our next plans for Spark into the timeline. So.
Nice.
Audio Fuse is another big product that you guys were talking about. Now that's your audio interface. Is that shipping currently? I haven't actually seen one in person. So.
No, it's not shipping yet. We're still working on production issues with it. You know, we want to hit that minus 129 EIN level.
That's exactly what I was about to ask about too.
Yeah, and that's the big thing is we actually had it at like minus 128.5 coming off the production units, and we're like, not enough. It's got to get the other.
Wow.
And it's that nobody will hear, but that's what we said it's going to be, and we're going to actually print out the frequency plot from each unit that goes through production, and it will be packaged with the units. So
that's crazy.
You actually see your noise and your distortions and your curves.
So the thing about Audio Fuse that kind of confused me when the press releases came out is there was a lot of okay, this is a new form factor for this type of interface, and it was really kind of pounding through that this was a new paradigm for audio interfaces. But what I didn't really realize when I was looking at it, I was like, I don't fully understand what you guys were meaning by that. Was it really the fact that it's a interface in a really small form factor that has such boutique level noise floor and preamps in it, or is it how many audio connections you have? Like, what is the big deal about it?
Yes.
There you go, Flux. You figured it out.
Yeah, I mean, it was the audio quality first and foremost, and that's the big thing. Is we wanted to step this thing up so that its competition is not in the $500 interface market; it's in the $2,000, $3,000 interface market as far as sound quality. So as far as getting the mic preamp gain, the fully discrete mic pre's, not using the op amps on them, using the higher quality A to D's and D to A's than you're finding in the main, I'll say the main 2-channel interface competition that's out there. We're using higher quality A to D, D to A's than they are, plus the discrete.
Can you say which converters you're using in them?
Yeah, they're the AKM, and I don't remember the exact one, but in the AKM they got the regular series and they have the premium series.
Mm-hmm.
We're using ones out of the premium series. The main competition that everybody knows for great sound quality is using the regular ones. So.
Excellent. See, now that's what I wanted to hear, and I
well,
wasn't.
And I'll go further on that because a lot of them, when they look at specifications, if you don't use the AES32 specs for how you generate specifications, AES came up with here's how you should generate your specs. A lot of them will print the specifications of the A to D and the D to A and use those as, oh, here's the specs, but they're not. But the analog section's not as good as what the A to D and the D to A's are.
Oh, I see.
So they're failing in there. So we had to make our analog sections better quality than the A to D and D to A's to hit those specs.
Gotcha. So you're not having a bottleneck, basically.
Yeah, no, and all of our specs are based on the AES32 specs. So if you look at them, if you know AES32, you can look at them and go, okay, here's what they reference. And if somebody else, prints their specs and they say they followed the AES32 specs as well, then you can really put them head to head and look at them. Otherwise, specs get so twisted as far as what the meaning is and what they really are or aren't.
I've been in the market for a new audio interface for probably, how long, Joe? Like 2 years?
About 3.
About 3 years, yeah. And I really, because the audio interface is the lifeblood of your system at the end of the day.
Because
if I'm using all this gear and I've got all this expensive stuff happening, and then I send it through crap, what's the point?
That was the thing with the software. We'd see things that, people saying, "Oh, this software doesn't sound good. This doesn't sound good." And it's like, okay, well, what interface are you using? Oh, I got this this $49 audio interface that I've got. It's like, well, yeah, it's not going to sound good. So, from our standpoint of the interface, really brings together two aspects of our company. We've got our software, we've got the stuff that's in the computer that needs to get out, and then you've got our analog hardware that's outside the computer that needs to get in.
Right.
And so the interface was our way of, okay, how do you get this great sounding analog in? How do you get this great sounding, VA stuff out?
Right.
Wait a minute.
We wanted
Why
to build
didn't you say that?
devices.
That should have been the core of the marketing piece. Or was it? Maybe I missed it.
The marketing had us all kind of like, so.
That's great, though. That makes a lot of sense.
Are you going to release
the
with
idea
all
of the
the
product.
different styles? Because there was a lot of different like color options. I saw a black and green one. I swear I did.
Yes, you did. Yeah, it's true. It's Flux screen. It totally is.
It's gonna happen in my setup. Now I have one issue, and this is for the muff wiggler guys. This is for the modular guys, but I gotta ask: what about DC coupled outputs? Is that happening on there, or is it AC coupled, or what? Do you know?
No, I don't know.
How about you find out? You let me know, and then I'll let other people know.
Sure. Yeah, we can do that.
Well, listen, we'll close out the show because I've stolen all of your time, and
No, that's all right.
I know you got golf scores to go over. So
That was last week, and I'm golfed out now. My back is hurting.
I hear you. Well, I saw 108 holes, and I thought to myself, I couldn't do it. So
Yeah, we went on a bit of a marathon. We played 6 rounds of golf in 4 days. So
I can't argue with you on that. So, yeah. Bottom line is that right now, V Collection just dropped. It's not just a graphical update; it is an engine update, and there's a lot more to come along with that because this is basically the start of these products. All now that they're being cleaned up, so to speak, as far as code-wise. Now you guys can really have a little bit more leeway and fun with them, right?
Oh yeah, very much so.
And so iSpark just dropped. iSpark is new, and sounds like the Spark platform has a lot more coming for it as well.
Yeah.
And then KeyStep just came out. I mean, you guys have been busy.
Yes.
Matrix
Yeah,
Brew is on its way.
Yeah.
Still being refined and made to be worth every penny. which my credit card company is going to thank you very soon. I'm
we
just
got a
looking
bunch
at
of-
it right now. I'm just looking at all those buttons like, man. And then hopefully we'll see the audio few soon as well, right?
Yeah. Hopefully that's going to be happening. I'm hoping in July.
Excellent. Oh, that's my
and then
birthday.
And then we've got a bunch of other products that are going to be coming out over the course of the year here. So.
Well, it sounds like
Windows
Arturia has a lot of products that are just like, just pounding the streets. So I think people are going to be really excited because, with the previous low res GUIs, it was like, updates were cool, but I can't see what I'm trying to do.
Pretty much.
Yeah. The proper thing was to get one of these. Work with
I've got mine behind me. So.
Yeah.
But I'm gonna pass it over to Bryce, and I want to remind everybody that Bryce has recently done an article on the disting. So can you remind everybody about what you've done as far as that's concerned?
Yeah, I did some stuff on the disting. Couple pages up on my website. Right now, I'm just working on the trying to do the trimmer review. So that's pretty much my main thing right now, and recovering from surgery. So, but yeah, so just taking it easy. Other than that.
Yeah, well, yeah, definitely. We wish you a speedy recovery on your wrist. You can get back to lifting and get off of the painkillers and get back to your normal self.
Right. Yeah.
Upright, or excuse me, Corry, B-Boy Tech Report, modular journal.
Yeah.
Tell me about the love.
So I started Modular Journal just because I wanted to chronicle my entry and just, not only the entry, but I also chronicle kind of just things that I learn and things that I'm, as I get into this whole modular way of doing things. And so the next episode, I'll definitely talk about the Eurocrack aspect of it all.
That's what I was just about to say. What is the methadone for Eurorack?
No doubt. So yeah, I've jumped in and just kind of bloomed into a full system. But I'm enjoying every second of it though.
I highly recommend people take a look at his site and his new system because it's extremely young, but man, is it choice.
Yeah,
no doubt. Well, you know what? The good thing is because about being around you guys all the time. Like I don't know what other guys have, but the resource that is my crew, that like. At any time of day or night, I'm like, what y'all think about this thing? That thing or this, you know what I mean? And there's just so much information that most people wouldn't get on a regular. Like most of us that are just kind of in our cocoons, like people that I have a regular day job. A lot of people have regular day jobs. So then when you're around people that's doing whatever people do at your day job, they got no clue about your little niche interests. You know what I mean?
Right.
Around people that are passionate about the same things, because I got a lot of information, that kept sending me to Perfect Circuit Audio.
Well, with that being said, let me remind everybody that we actually have, so Joe, Corry, and Bryce, and myself and a few others, we all tend to text message each other daily, constantly, nonstop. Yeah. And we found an app called TalkShow. And what TalkShow is basically it's a group text, and it's the same people. It's us and some of our crew from MSX Audio. So shout out to D Steel and MSimp, and then we've also got Willie from the MachineWarehouse.com and Sonic Expansion. And we all are in this TalkShow app, which is a group text where we talk to each other, but it's open for everybody to read. So it's a talk show that's text-based. So a lot of the times we'll hop on there and we'll just kind of converse about audio gear. We'll talk trash about Arturia. We'll just kind of get it in. We'll talk about this is how my bank account's looking today. How is Glenn gonna damage it? And basically, we go in there and we converse in there. So I highly recommend people check out the Talk Show app if you're on iOS. It's not on Android yet. But we have a show on there called Synth, Samplers, and Sounds, the Gear Show, the Music Gear Show. So check that out.
And it's a featured show as well.
It is a featured show, that's correct. We got currently, I think, like 4,500 viewers. So
I think it's more than that now.
Quickly, and it's a brand new app, so it's pretty cool. So, Joe, soundsandgear.com.
Same stuff, man.
I heard you went modular.
I did. I blame all of y'all. I blame y'all. Especially Flux has been on me about this for years. But once Studio Electronics went modular, I was really into it, and then messing with that MiniBrute, man, it just, once I patched my first cable in there, I was kind of hooked. So, yeah, I mean, I'm doing the same thing as Corry. We kind of started at the same time. Don't go to Corry's site and then come to my site and expect to see the same thing. I have one module right now. I don't have a system. I have a filter. That's it. But I'm doing the same thing, just kind of growing and documenting that, and, of course, just doing the same stuff that I always do, tutorials and reviews and all that type of stuff. So come to the site, man.
I'll tell you something interesting about Joe's site. So Joe is a master of seeing the obvious and then actually, like, kind of expanding on that in a way that, I should have done. So he recently did a thing on, there's a site called Modular Grid. And he recently did a episode where he talks about how he uses Modular Grid. And I hadn't even thought of that. I was kicking myself afterwards. But it's brilliant because it really explains perfect ways of planning your modular, getting ready to do these kinds of things. Because let's face it, modular, there's cheap ways to get into it, and then there's the real world.
Yeah.
You want to be prepared for what happens when you get into modular, and that video is great.
Yeah, and I think a lot of people, and I think Corry will agree, a lot of people can be intimidated by it, and so I know for me that's one reason why I want to just kind of show my whole process to show people that you don't have to know everything to get started in this. Like, you don't have to be intimidated. You can go in and say, look, I don't know what I'm doing, but hey, this is fun. This is this and this is that, and you just grow along with it. So that's kind of the whole idea behind what I'm doing, and I think that's the same with Corry. We just kind of
it is actually, and it's good you bring that up, Joe, because that's why I do. We're doing it for this kind of the same reasons, and I wanted people to know, like, because people look at us as like resources. For the latest, greatest things that come out. So when you see guys like us, they're like, yo, I don't know.
Right.
I'm going to find out. And as I find out, I'm going to share.
Exactly.
You know what I mean? And that's kind of it. And the other thing is, too, like, people tend to think that when you're into modular, you just automatically know it all and you're a genius.
Yep.
That's not the case for everybody. And a lot of times you don't know what a lot of this stuff is until you're actually into it and start putting your hands on it.
Right.
And use
Very
for it.
true.
So
Very
that's
true.
kind of what I want to convey, and I think it's kind of the same with what we're doing.
Yep.
Exactly. And basically on my site, I guess most recent thing that I did was I think I did the Prophet 12 but Prophet 12 Ultranova shootout, which I wanted to take two synthesizers that were in totally different price brackets that people would not want to compare and compare them because there was actually a lot of parity there as far as how those things work. And so I did a video for it, and I did a really, really long-winded article. I mean, this thing is well over 4,000 words. Yeah, and, Joe and them were kind of telling me, hey, you should release this in multiple instances, and you'll get better clicks and this and that. And I said, you're absolutely right, and I'm too lazy to do that. I'm going to it all out now. So, I wrote this thing over months, and I took a lot of time to really evaluate the two synthesizers and compare them to each other and dive into what works on them, what I feel like doesn't work well on both of them, and what fanboys are going to hate me for when I crush their idols, and what fanboys are going to love me for when I hold them up, that kind of stuff.
Yep.
So definitely check that out. I did a video on the Barton writable quantizer and the Synthrotech MIDI to CV module. The Synthrotech MIDI to CV module, I want to just shout out, is a USB to CV module takes up very little space, and they have an expander that gives you arpeggiation and extra control for your mod wheel and your aftertouch and all that stuff. So it's like real easy to set up inside of like Ableton Live or whatever else and just send, you know, MIDI to control voltage, and that kind of stuff is super easy. So I love that thing. Writable quantizer is crazy bananas. And then the next video that I have coming up is going to be the Thriller VCO or Thriller filter from SynthCube as well. It's an Ian Fritz module. And I'm also going to be doing the Animodule MIDI gate, which is crazy because it's literally you plug a DIN cable into this thing and you can finger drum your heart's content and do all kinds of sequencing on an MPC 3500, MPC 5000. It doesn't matter what kind of drum machine you have. You can sequence your drums of the module from that as long as you've got a DIN cable, which is awesome. So definitely check that out. But
I have a request from you then, Ken.
Oh, request away, sir. It's going to cost you a Matrix Brute.
Uh-oh.
Go ahead.
Do a comparison across some of the different granular modules that are out there.
Oh, absolutely. That's
I want to get one, and I haven't figured out which one to get yet.
You know,
Granular. Wow. Okay.
there's a few out there that I've actually played with, and I'll be honest with you. I'm going to ask you before I even get into that. I just want to ask one quick question. Do you want it to control volt per octave, or do you want it to be more esoteric than that?
More esoteric is more fun for me.
Okay, because I will tell you that I fully regret getting rid of my phonogene. Which,
well, you need to do like a whole show shootout of the different.
You're absolutely right. You're absolutely right, and I'm gonna work on that. But I just want to let you know, I do regret getting rid of the phonogene. That was a really cool module. So, you know, if anybody can get a chance to get a hold of a Make Noise phonogene, that thing is fun. So it's ridiculous, but it's awesome. So anyway, this has been Synth Summit Show, episode 10. I want to thank Glen Darcey of Arturia for coming on. You're always welcome back to come on, of course. And everybody go out and grab V Collection right now. And everything else that, like, I can't even name it all because Arturia is just killing everybody right now. So
Arturia's killing the streets, son.
30 people just punch you in the face daily with things that you have to buy. So
yeah.
All right, peace.
All right, man.